I mean, so one of the things that Bob Tap is interested in looking at is these systems of either agricultural or hydrological terracing around Petra. And what that means is basically kind of any kind of intervention that people have made to the natural landscape to improve either water retention or to decrease soil erosion. So one of the things that happens in and around Petra is that you get you get sort of very little rainfall during the year, and most of it happens kind of during one time of the year. And so you'll get these flash floods that come down from the mountains, and then they pass through these wadi channels and then kind of dump into a larger drainage that goes down towards the Red Sea. And so the terracing is sort of, terracing is a pretty universal technique, but it's basically just any sort of way in which people kind of build into the natural slope of a hill to kind of to sort of break up the kind of angle of the slope. And so what you get is, rather than water rushing down a hillside, you get these breaks where both the force of the water gets kind of spread out, so you prevent that kind of disastrous flash flooding, but also it causes the water to sort of sit at these breaks for a little bit. And so you get this pooling, and then the soil can kind of retain water that otherwise it would just lose. One of the things that has kind of quickly become obvious is that these interventions in the landscape are just so much more extensive than I think people had imagined. And when you visit Petra today, it is very striking that it's in this kind of semi-arid, kind of desert-like environment. You have these red rock cliffs and sort of these sandstone tombs, and it does feel very much like, it feels like an inhospitable place. And one of the things that doing this kind of work in the hinterlands shows is that it probably was not actually such an inhospitable place, that people were sort of really creative with the types of water management and kind of agricultural interventions that they were practicing. And so even, several kilometers outside of the city center, people would have been growing trees. They would have had grapes growing for wine, maybe like wheat and barley and things like that. We sometimes tend to underestimate people in the past, and we sort of imagine the past being very similar to the present, both in the sense that we imagine that the environment that we see is what the environment was like in the past, but we also imagine that the things that seem hard to us also seemed hard in the past. So when you're in Petra, it seems hard to think about kind of ways to collect water and make use of it all year, but one of the things that we're realizing is that people are doing this sort of at all different levels, that there's these state level interventions where people are building pools and garden complexes and waterfalls outside of tombs and things like that, but then there's also farmers that are working together to dig cisterns, to build terraces, to sometimes build dams, and so you really get a sense, of not just sort of the city of Petra, but the people who make up the city of Petra.